Loudspeaker disclaimer. This story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. It was past midnight when I first noticed the change in his eyes. Not the soft, sleepy kind of look he used to give me after we whispered secrets in bed, but something deeper, heavier. The kind of gaze that feels like a question, but you're too afraid to answer. The silence between us had grown thick over the months, like an invisible wall made of unsaid things, stolen glances, and words swallowed whole. My name is Elena. I'm 32. Married for 6 years to Ryan, a man who once made me feel like the only woman in the universe. He had this magnetic charm, the kind that made strangers trust him, and me, love him blindly. We met in college. He used to write poetry on my palms during lectures. Now, he barely touches me without reason. Last night wasn't about romance. It wasn't about love. Not entirely. I lay there, wide awake, while the rain tapped on the windows like a warning. Ryan's fingers traced my spine, slow, deliberate. But it wasn't tenderness. It felt like something was unraveling inside him, and I was just trying to keep up. He didn't let me sleep. Not because he needed me, but because he was watching me, as if he was searching for answers in my every breath. We haven't talked about what I found on his phone. I told myself it could have been a mistake. A joke. But the name on those messages? It wasn't mine. And the words? They weren't just casual. They were intimate. The kind of words only a husband should write to his wife. This story isn't about a fight. It's about what happens when love starts to hide in the corners of a house and suspicion starts sleeping between you. When every kiss feels rehearsed and silence becomes the loudest part of your nights. Ryan says he still loves me, that he's just tired, stressed, under pressure. But last night, something was different. He whispered things in the dark that didn't feel like they were meant for me. His grip lingered too long. His voice broke on the word forever. And just as I began to drift off, hoping morning would make everything feel less wrong, I heard him whisper a name in his sleep. It wasn't mine. I didn't say anything when I heard her name. I just lay there, still as stone, my back to him. My breath shallow, trying not to tremble. Part of me hoped he'd realize it, reach for me, whisper my name, take it back. But he didn't. He shifted slightly, rolled onto his side, and let out a soft, content sigh. Like he'd just told the truth his heart had been aching to say. We used to laugh in this room, dance clumsily to old songs, and leave half-finished conversations between kisses. But lately, it feels like we're performing a memory neither of us remembers how to believe in. Ryan made breakfast this morning like nothing happened. Scrambled eggs, toast a little too brown, and coffee just the way I liked it. It was his quiet way of saying, I'm still trying. But what he didn't say, what neither of us did, hung between us like fog. I studied him from across the table. His eyes were tired, but not in the usual way. There was a weight behind them. A hesitation. When he reached for his mug, his fingers brushed mine. Warm. Familiar. But it didn't spark the way it used to. It felt like muscle memory, not desire. You didn't sleep, he said. I wasn't tired, I lied. He nodded, swallowing hard. Work's been a lot lately. I figured. We both sipped our coffee like it was a shield. Like the bitterness would somehow fill the silence. The thing is, I still crave him. His touch. His laugh. The way he used to cut my face and say I was his piece. But now, I'm not sure if I bring him peace or guilt. And that question keeps pressing against my chest like a weight I can't breathe around. I remembered the first time he looked at me like I was his whole world, right outside this kitchen, on the first night we moved in. We ate pizza on the floor and kissed with greasy lips, swearing we'd never become one of those couples who drift. But maybe drifting doesn't happen all at once. Maybe it's slow, like water leaking through a crack you don't notice until it floods the whole house. And now I keep wondering, who is she? And when did she become the name he carries in his sleep? That afternoon, The scent of jasmine filled the hallway, not from our usual diffuser, but from Ryan's shirt. It wasn't mine. He had just come in from work, loosening his tie with the kind of tired grace that used to make me feel needed. I stood at the kitchen sink, pretending to rinse a glass, even though my fingers were trembling. I caught the perfume in the air, faint, unfamiliar, too soft to accuse, but too specific to ignore. He kissed my cheek like he always did. Just a brush. Polite. Mechanical. His lips lingered for a second longer than usual, as if to convince us both that nothing had changed. But something had. New cologne? I asked, casual but calculated. Ryan blinked, then shook his head. No. Why? I shrugged. Just noticed a different scent. Nice. He nodded, his smile almost convincing, but not quite. Later that night, he sat on the balcony, scrolling through his phone under the dim glow of string lights we'd once hung up together during a wine-soaked weekend. I watched him from the couch. His posture was relaxed, but his jaw tensed every time a message popped up. He'd tilt the screen slightly away when he replied. That's when I knew. Not just suspected, knew. It wasn't physical yet. Maybe. But there was something sacred between us that he had already started giving to someone else. His attention. His thoughts. His secrets. The most painful betrayals don't always come with lipstick on a collar or late-night absences. Sometimes they arrive in the form of locked phones, softened voices during late calls, and laughter you haven't heard in weeks coming from someone else's side of the line. I walked onto the balcony quietly, letting the night wind wrap around me like armor. He looked up, startled, then smiled with that same practiced ease. You okay? I asked, sitting beside him. Yeah, he said too quickly. Just catching up with my brother. Tell him I said hi. He hesitated. Will do. The lie passed between us like smoke. Invisible, but choking just the same. We sat in silence, the kind that didn't feel safe anymore. His hand was inches from mine, resting on the woven chair arm. I didn't reach for it. Neither did he. Down the street, I could hear the hum of life, a couple laughing as they walked their dog, a radio playing some old R&B love song. All of it felt like another universe. Inside, our wedding photo sat crooked on the mantel. I hadn't noticed it before. And I couldn't help but wonder, had it always been tilted, or had we just stopped looking closely? That night, the thunder rolled in. Not the kind that announces a storm, the kind that sneaks up, deep and low, like the sound of something unraveling. The rain hit the windows in steady rhythms, but inside our home, the silence was deafening. Ryan stood at the edge of our bedroom, towel around his neck, hair damp from a late shower. His chest rose and fell in a rhythm I used to know like a song. But now, even his breathing felt like something I wasn't allowed to understand. I sat on the bed, knees drawn up, wearing the silk robe he once bought me for our anniversary. Back when his eyes lit up at the sight of me in candlelight. Now, his gaze flicked over me like I was a stranger. Or worse, a reminder of something he wanted to forget. I miss us, I whispered. He didn't answer right away. Just stared at the floor, his fingers curling into the edge of the towel. I don't know how to be us anymore, he finally said, his voice cracking in the middle. It's like we're trying to hold on to something that doesn't fit the same. I felt the sting in my throat, the ache of wanting to scream, and pull him close at the same time. But I still love you, I said, quieter now. Even if you don't see me the same. He walked toward me then. Slow, like the ground between us might give way. He sat beside me, our knees touching, and for a moment, I felt a sliver of the man I used to know. His fingers reached for mine, but they paused in the air. I don't know what I'm doing, he admitted. Sometimes I think I'm losing myself. Are you in love with her? I asked, not angry, just broken. He didn't deny it. He just looked at me with tears in his eyes and a kind of regret that tore something inside me open. We were so close, our foreheads nearly touching. But neither of us leaned in. Because sometimes, the most painful thing isn't losing love. It's realizing you're still in love with someone who's already halfway gone. The next morning came too soon. Ryan was already gone when I woke up. His side of the bed still warm, but the house felt colder than usual. I lingered in that space, half dreaming, half dreading, trying to replay last night's almost touch. It was the closest we'd come to honesty in weeks. And yet, something still felt off. Like a page was missing in a story I thought I'd memorized. I went downstairs, hoping for a note. A sign. A message. Anything. But the only thing waiting for me was his coffee cup, still half full, and a faint echo of his cologne near the doorway. The same scent, mixed with jasmine again. It clung to my sweater when I picked it up from the coat rack. Later that day, I drove to his office. I wasn't planning to. I just needed to see something real, something solid. But when I pulled up to the building, I saw her. I didn't know her name, but I knew it was her. She was standing just outside the glass doors, laughing softly into her phone, the same phone Ryan had angled away from me the night before. She wore a soft cream blouse and a thin gold chain around her neck. She didn't look like a threat. She looked like poetry, simple, composed, intoxicating. But it wasn't just how she looked. It was the way Ryan walked out to her. Not with urgency or guilt, but with a comfort I hadn't seen in months. His hand brushed her arm casually, like it had done it 100 times before. She leaned in. He smiled. My heart cracked quietly in the car. I didn't cry. I didn't storm in. I just watched. I went home that evening, silent, numb. The kind of numb that makes you forget how to hold your own breath. But when I opened the door, he was there, cooking dinner. Music low, wine already poured, like nothing had happened. I thought we could talk, he said, his eyes soft. But before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You don't know everything. He's not who you think. Neither of them are. The room spun. My grip tightened on the phone. I glanced at Ryan. He smiled like everything was normal. But everything had changed. Because now, it wasn't just about love. Or betrayal. It was about the secrets someone else didn't want me to find. The storm finally broke the night. Everything came to light. Ryan sat across from me, the flickering light from a single candle casting shadows over his face. We hadn't spoken much since dinner, not even after the message. I needed answers, not just about her, but about us. About what we had lost, and what we still hadn't said. I saw you, I said quietly. With her. At your office. He didn't flinch. Just exhaled slowly and met my eyes. She's not what you think, he said. She's my past, not my present. But you smiled at her like I stopped existing. His shoulders dropped. Because she reminds me of who I used to be. Before life got messy. Before I started letting you down. I stared at him, trembling not with anger, but heartbreak. And what about the message I got? Who sent it? He hesitated. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. She did, he said. She wanted you to think I was cheating. To punish me. We had a thing. A long time ago. Before you. She came back into my life last month. She wanted more. I said no. I blinked. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I thought I could handle it without hurting you. I was wrong. I stepped back, heart thudding. So you weren't lying in bed with me all these nights, while thinking about her? He looked devastated. I was thinking about losing you. A beat of silence passed. Then another. And then, I pulled out the ring, the one I had slipped off days ago in quiet rage, and set it on the table. I don't know if I can trust you, I said, voice breaking. He reached across the table, took my hand gently. Then let me start again. No lies. No shadows. Just me. And you. The candle flickered wildly between us. I wanted to believe him. I wanted the pain to turn into something else. And maybe I still loved him enough to try. But then my phone lit up again. Another message. You forgave the wrong man. And attached was a picture of Ryan in her apartment 2 nights ago. Smiling, the candle went out. The days after the truth felt quieter than I expected. No shouting, no begging, just silence, the kind that wraps around a home and changes everything inside it. Ryan didn't deny the second photo. He didn't offer excuses either. He just said he was sorry and that he hoped one day I'd remember the man I first fell in love with, not the one who forgot how to protect what we had. I left that night, not with anger, but with a kind of calm sadness. The kind that doesn't scream, but settles in your bones. In the days that followed, I stayed with my sister. She didn't ask questions. Just held my hand, made tea, and let me grieve not just a man, but the future I had imagined with him. I replayed everything, every soft look, every strange silence, every late-night whisper that now made too much sense. And I also remembered how I fought for us. How I loved fully even when I was hurting. Sometimes, love is not enough. Sometimes, loyalty turns into loneliness when you're the only one holding on. And that's the hardest part, letting go of someone who still feels like home, even after they've burned it down. The woman he saw. I never confronted her. I didn't need to. She wasn't the reason we broke. He was. His choices, his lies, his fear of being honest with me. But I also realized something else. I had betrayed myself first by staying silent, by shrinking to fit into something smaller than the love I deserved. And that, maybe, was the most painful truth of all. It's been 3 months now. The house is quieter. But it's mine. The mornings are still lonely sometimes, but peaceful. I go for walks. I cook again. I smile without pretending. And some nights, I still think of him. Not with hate. Not even regret. Just memory. Love is a powerful thing. But so is letting go. If you're watching this, wondering whether to stay, to fight, or to walk away, ask yourself, is this love or is this survival? And are you giving yourself the love you're trying so hard to give someone else?